Live from WRAL News Headquarters in Raleigh, your number one source for local news. WRAL News, coverage you can count on.
An hours-long standoff in Butner finally at an end. What we're learning about the man now in custody.
Taking a live look outside at RDU. We're looking at some damp conditions for you this morning. I'll show you where we're seeing the drizzle.
And legalization of mobile sports betting in North Carolina is going to a vote today. Here's a live look at the General Assembly. The changes lawmakers are making as the bill gets closer to becoming law and when you'll be able to place your bets. We are all in on this morning newscast, number 5. That's right. Good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday. Great to have you with us. I'm Renee Chu.
I'm Jeff Hogan. Yeah, thanks for making us part of your routine here. We close out the month here. Can we please make it stop here? This drizzle that is outside, Elizabeth. Some of the clouds. I know, Elizabeth, first day back off that Memorial Day weekend. Good morning.
I tell you what, though, be careful what you wish for, because when we get out of this cooler pattern, those temperatures are going to skyrocket and it's going to be sticky out there. Right now, we're looking at 1 mile visibility around the Triangle area. I'm not really looking at fog, but it is gray. It's drizzly. We take a look at Doppler 5000 radar. No rain showing up, but the radar is calibrated to see raindrops and not drizzle, which is so much smaller. So that's why we're not seeing it. Here's a look at Rocky Mount Mills. It's a little bit damp here this morning. You can see a lot of cloud covering. See the roof is wet there at Rocky Mount Mills. 64 is our current temperature around the Triangle area. We have a northeasterly wind that's going to keep things on the cooler and cloudy side for us today. Lots of cloud cover to start with, but notice in the afternoon we get back to about 55 to 60% of the sky covered with clouds. So we may see a few breaks in the clouds and an isolated shower. Most of us are not going to see any rain today, but just put it down there just to cover the bases in case we see a stray shower. Our temperatures this morning range from 57 in Roxborough to 65 in Fayetteville. Most of us are looking at low to mid 60s. So it's a mild start this morning, but we'll keep it in the 60s until lunchtime. We only climb into the mid 70s this afternoon because of the cloud cover. We do have some 80s in our forecast and a bit of sunshine. I'll show you when to expect that coming up, Brian.
Elizabeth, some new information here at 6 o'clock. We have a couple of crashes that have popped up. One on the south side of Raleigh on the right shoulder of 40 westbound, right around the South Saunders Street interchange. You can see it looks like a pretty minor crash there. Just a reminder to move over at least one lane as you head through that area. Also in Garner, we're getting reports of a crash on 70 Business eastbound right at the I-40 interchange. Not seeing any delay showing up on those sensors, but we'll have another live update in about 10 minutes with another look at that sensor data. Jeff.
Thanks, Brian. What a morning for breaking news. Neighbors are just now being allowed to return home after a standoff at an apartment complex that lasted nearly 9 hours. Officers arrested a man within the last hour who had barricaded himself inside the Edgewood Bridge apartments in Butner. The WRAL breaking news tracker was there the moment this happened, and Eric Miller joins us now live from outside the apartment complex. Eric.
That's right, Jeff. A huge change out here from what we were seeing just a few minutes ago. All of those first responders now clearing out. Just about 5 minutes ago, I had a chance to check in with the sheriff's office once again. That office confirming they were able to take this man into custody without injuries and that he will be facing several charges here. You take a look at some of this video from the scene, you get a sense of what things looked like out here all night. Heavily armed and armored sheriff's deputies as well as members of the SBI out here trying to bring this to some kind of peaceful conclusion. You know, they started right around 8:30. That's when the sheriff's office tells us this man fired into a neighboring apartment. We're able to speak with a relative of one of the folks who lives there in that apartment. She says her brother was actually bathing his 3-year-old child. The moment that gun went off, he had actually bent down to try to dry that child off when the bullet came through the wall. Take a listen to what she had to say.
And if it wasn't just for the fact that he bent over my brother, I'd be planning my brother's funeral right now for my niece.
Yeah, just absolutely terrifying. Now, that woman, she only wanted to be identified as Ms. Davis, but she says there have been issues with this man now in custody going back at least 4 months. Her brother, as well as other neighbors, having problems with this man, making threats, being violent. Her brother had apparently tried to get some kind of restraining order, but was unable to do that. All of that culminating with this terrible situation last night, and with that man now in custody. Still a lot of developing parts to this story. We're going to keep pressing for answers. Bring those to you as soon as we get them. In Butner, Eric Miller, WRAL News.
Mobile sports betting is one step closer to becoming legal in North Carolina. Today, the Senate will vote on it, but that doesn't mean the waiting is over. WRAL's Laura Levine walks us through the next steps.
In a couple of months, you could be able to pull out your phone and place bets on college or professional sports. Today and tomorrow, the state Senate will vote on the new version of the bill. Now, the bill would also allow up to 8 in-person sports books at venues across the state. Last week, a Senate committee made some changes to the bill. They want to not only allow bets on your phone, but also in person and with cash at professional sports venues. Also, if it becomes law, you may have to wait longer than originally planned to start placing bets. The start date could be pushed back for another year to next June instead of this January. And if the Senate moves the bill this week, it has to go back to the House. Then it has to be signed by Governor Roy Cooper before it becomes law. The Senate will meet today at 4 p.m. Laura Levine, WRAL News in Raleigh.
Just 5 days left now until we raise the nation's debt limit and avoid a potential economic disaster. This is a live look at the U.S. Capitol, where a deal to do just that will go to a vote today after surviving a key hurdle late last night. The agreement passed the powerful House Rules Committee by a tight 7-6 margin. Now, some of the loudest conservative critics of the bill are members of that panel. The full House will debate the bill today before taking it to a vote. Republican leaders believe they have enough support to pass it and send it to the Senate. The Treasury Department says it must be approved by June 5th to avoid defaulting on debts.
A search is growing this morning for the driver who led troopers on a high-speed chase before crashing. State troopers say someone stole this car in Person County. The driver led troopers on a chase at speeds over 100 miles an hour into Durham County last night. The driver eventually crashed the stolen car near Hillendale Road and Horton Street in Durham. The person was able to get out and run off.
Police in Florida are ramping up their search for 3 people linked to a Memorial Day shooting on this busy beach boardwalk you see here. 2 other suspected gunmen are in custody. 9 people were hurt, including 4 children. There's newly released 911 calls that are giving us more insight into the moments just after those shots started.
The shooting, I think somebody got hit.
You just heard the gunshot?
Yes, we see the guy. 2 people got hit right now. 2 people got hit. A lady and another lady got hit.
6 of the 9 people who were shot are reported to be in stable condition at the hospital. The youngest victim just a year old.
And happening right now in the WRAL Live Center, the head of the U.S. Border Patrol is retiring after more than 30 years. This is Raul Ortiz. He helped oversee policy changes aimed at curbing irregular crossings at the U.S.-Mexico border. He also led the Border Patrol through COVID-19 and Title 42 emergency health restrictions. The commissioner calling Ortiz this morning a true leader and a great agent. Now, it's not clear who will replace Ortiz, but Ortiz did leave a note before leaving saying, "I leave at ease, knowing we have outstanding leaders." His last day will be June 30th.
Michelle, thanks. A man who lives overseas now faces federal charges, including threatening to kill our U.S. senators from North Carolina. Investigators say 51-year-old Eric Welton repeatedly called the offices of Senators Tom Tillis and Richard Burr and made graphic death threats. Welton is a U.S. citizen who lives in Thailand. Investigators say he's threatened Marines who work there. FBI agents arrested Welton at the Atlanta airport. If convicted, he faces up to 10 years in prison.
We now know the name of the little boy who was killed while riding his electric scooter in a neighborhood in Apex. Ayan Vasheri was a 4th grader at Combs Elementary School. He died Monday, and people in that neighborhood tell us he and some other friends were playing on Woodall Crest Drive when a car hit him. The driver was not hurt and is not facing charges at this time. Police say their full investigation will take a few weeks.
Former First Lady Rosalynn Carter is facing a new health challenge this morning. Her family revealed she's been diagnosed with dementia. They released a statement saying the 95-year-old, quote, continues to live happily at home with her husband, enjoying spring in Plains, Georgia, and visits with loved ones. Rosalynn's diagnosis comes just 3 months after former President Jimmy Carter entered hospice care. The White House says President Biden has been in touch with the couple recently and wishes them well.
6:08 is the time right now. Talk about a wild ride. A close encounter between a Chinese jet and a U.S. spy plane caught on camera. What both countries are saying about why the planes were so close.
I'm Ken Smith. We're used to having our luggage weighed when we fly, but one airline is asking passengers to get on the scale when checking in for a flight. We'll explain the reasons behind this flight weigh-in.
And it's a messy start for us this morning. A little bit of drizzle out there. We're going to see temperatures warming up. We'll be drying out a little bit, getting closer to the weekend. But a front comes in on Saturday. I'll show you the chance for rain where you are coming up.
As you get into your car, tune to WRAL News Plus on your radio. In Raleigh on 99.3 FM. In Durham, 96.5 FM. And everywhere on 101.5 HD3.
It is 6:11. It's a bit drizzly out there in some spots this morning, but it's mild. A little breezy in Wilson. The whirligigs are spinning around 63 degrees. Durham, at least on these three cameras, is the wettest spot. We've had a good bit of heavy drizzle right around the Triangle area. It's 64 right now in Durham, but a little sunshine trying to break through there in Fayetteville, where it is 65 degrees. We'll have a better chance of seeing that in places this afternoon, but really today's going to feel pretty cloudy like it has the last several days. Some drizzle, some mist, cloudy skies, 63 degrees. Haven't seen too much fog out there this morning, but in some spots, especially in the Triangle area, the kids might be happy with a raincoat or an umbrella. That drizzle is pretty heavy in spots. As you're getting off the bus, maybe a little sunshine, but temperatures stay on the cool side in the mid to upper 70s. Brian?
Weather and traffic every 10 minutes this hour of WRAL Morning News. At 6:12, we take you live to I-40 out at South Saunders Street. Some sort of an incident out there blocking the right shoulder of 40 westbound. With those flashing lights, a reminder to move over at least one lane or slow down considerably as you head through that area. Another crash that we're following is in Garner on 70 Business eastbound at the I-40 interchange. So far, we have not seen any big delays. We'll zoom right in there, show you that sensor data. Looks like traffic is flowing freely in both directions, but we'll have another update coming up in just a few minutes. Jeff.
All right, thanks, Brian. We'll take it to the not-so-friendly skies. A Chinese fighter jet aggressively intercepted a U.S. spy plane. It was all caught on camera. If you take a look at this, this is from the perspective on board that reconnaissance aircraft. You can see the Chinese jet flying nearby. Officials say the two planes were in international airspace Friday over the South China Sea. The Chinese jet kind of cuts in front of the nose of the American aircraft. And watch this, a little bobble in that aircraft. Forced it to fly through some turbulence there. Whoa. China claims jurisdiction over much of that sea, but international law considers it open airspace.
The city of Durham is reviewing its hiring process after firing its solid waste management director. WRAL learned from officials that James Lyons faked his work history when he applied for the solid waste management director's position. The city manager says Lyons was first hired on May 8th, less than a month ago. We're told the firm hired by Durham to vet applicants did not screen Lyons per its contract agreement.
There's an airline making an unusual request of some of its passengers. Before you step on the plane, they're asking you to step on the scale. Ken Smith is here to explain why Air New Zealand is doing this and what it hopes to learn by it. Ken.
You know, Jeff, we're used to our luggage being weighed, but this seems a little uncomfortable when you think about it because our weight is so personal and private for so many people. Well, Air New Zealand wants to use this survey to collect data on weight load and weight distribution for planes, which affects everything, including climb rate and cruising altitude. We should note this weigh-in for international travelers is optional. Passengers can skip it. Now, among those who could be asked to step on the scale are those traveling on Air New Zealand's direct flight from Auckland to New York's JFK.
They're going to collect a fairly large number of passengers as they board. They'll weigh them. That will go into a database, and then they'll be able to determine what is an appropriate and average weight for people with their carry-on bags and everything else.
Well, the airline says this data is anonymous. The information will be fed directly into a computer. No one will see it. Now, the airline is responding to a mandate from New Zealand's Civil Aviation Authority, which is equivalent to the FAA here in the U.S. Now, coming up on Today After Our Morning News, a closer look at the privacy concerns surrounding this optional survey and whether U.S. carriers could consider this option in the future. Renee.
Very interesting, Ken. Thank you. 4 astronauts are back on the ground this morning after a 9-day trip to the International Space Station. A SpaceX capsule containing the crew parachuted into the Gulf of Mexico just a few hours ago. The crew included 2 Saudi astronauts. One of them was the first Saudi woman to ever go into space. They rocketed into space last week on Axiom's second chartered flight to the space station. The company plans to send more people up by the end of the year.
And happening right now in the WRAL Live Center, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin is in Japan today. He paid a visit to U.S. troops who are stationed in Japan. He also plans to meet with the Japanese defense minister and other senior leaders on that trip. Now, the visit comes as the U.S. and Japan take important strides to modernize alliance capabilities, optimize U.S. force posture, and build links with like-minded partners. Later on, Secretary Austin will travel to Singapore, India, and France.
Thanks, Michelle. 1 in 5 kids shows signs of disordered eating, things like calorie counting, food restriction, and over-exercising. That's according to a study published in JAMA Pediatrics. It's more common among girls and older adolescents, but now a growing number of experts are urging parents to change the narrative at home to help foster a healthy relationship with food. Coming up on Today, it's up next after this newscast. Jenna Bush Hager is chatting with a family psychologist about how you can create a positive relationship with food at home. Today airs right here at 7 o'clock WRAL.
You're taking a live look outside the Century plant, blooming in the WRAL azalea garden. It's had a growth spurt since our last check-in. It grew 1.5 feet in just 1 week. Our master gardener tells us the plant was 13 feet tall last week, and now it's at 14.5. In full bloom, it could get as tall as 20 to 30 feet. We expect it to complete its growth sometime next month. So you still have time to come out and check it out. Also check out the WRAL Azalea Gardens. Hydrangeas are in full bloom as well. Meteorologist Elizabeth Gardner in the WRAL Severe Weather Center. Today's temperatures will be very comfortable with that.
They will, and we're starting with a lot of heavy drizzle in some places, but it's not going to last all day. We start off with dual Doppler 5000 radar, and you see that nothing's showing up here. It's calibrated to pick out raindrops, which are a lot bigger than the particles of drizzle. But as we take a look at our cameras across our area, Apex and Chapel Hill in particular are looking damp. The cameras that we pull up around Raleigh look fairly wet, but Goldsboro is looking a little drier, and Fayetteville is too. It looks like maybe just now beginning to see a little bit of drizzle there, right there on the sidewalk in front of our Fayetteville newsroom. So it's a bit of a messy start. This low pressure system is the one that's been just wandering around all weekend, still hanging out off the coast, and it is feeding wind in from the northeast, and so that's keeping things a little damp again and cool today too. A lot of cloud cover. Here's a look at Futurecast. We'll take it out and pause it there at lunchtime with gray skies. But into the afternoon, we start to see a few holes in the clouds. We could see maybe an isolated shower. We're not looking at a whole lot of rain. Tomorrow, we may see a quick sprinkle in the morning, and then on through the afternoon, you can see these tiny, they're hard to see. They're so small. Our chance for rain today is 20 to 30%. Same thing again tomorrow, just not going to see a whole lot of rain. And then on Friday, same story. This is 9 a.m. We'll have maybe an isolated shower in the south on Friday. And then Saturday is the only front that we'll see coming through. That front doesn't arrive until pretty late in the day. There's 6 p.m. That front moves through, and there could be an isolated shower or thunderstorm ahead of or along that front, but it's certainly not going to be a washout of a weekend. As a matter of fact, rainfall for the next 5 days, you can see for most of us, it's a trace to 0, but our southeastern counties could see up to a 10th. So we're not looking at much rain. Shouldn't be enough to cause any real problems. This is interesting. Of course, the hurricane season begins tomorrow, and the Hurricane Center has put a 10 to 20% chance for a low developing here in the Gulf of Mexico to move across the Florida peninsula in the next few days. This is going to be 4 o'clock tomorrow. Gradually, as we get into the weekend, it starts to form up off the coast of South Carolina and Georgia. But instead of moving up the coast of North Carolina, all of a sudden our wind shifts to northerly and starts to push that system back out away from us and into the Atlantic. So right now, it doesn't look like anything that would be a big deal. Maybe some rip current danger along the coast over the weekend. 77 today, 80 is for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. But once Saturday's front comes through, Sunday looks gorgeous. We'll see temperatures in the upper 70s with some sunshine and a nice little drop in humidity. So, hey, Brian, we can't have a weekend without at least a little bit of rain in the forecast, but it's not going to be terrible.
A small price to pay to keep temperatures below 90 degrees, though. For sure, I think. It is now 6:19 as we take a look at traffic around the Triangle. Still tracking this crash in Garner. Reportedly a crash with injuries on 70 eastbound at the I-40 interchange, but we're not seeing any delays through there. Even as we zoom in really closely here and take a close look at that data, we're not picking up any backups. Just something you want to keep in mind there in Garner. On the south side of Raleigh, another crash that we're following on 40 westbound right around South Saunders Street. You can see some activity there on the right shoulder, what appears to be a pretty minor crash just beyond that South Saunders ramp. Just want to keep that in mind as you head through South Raleigh this morning.
Thanks, Brian. A bone-chilling warning about artificial intelligence. Hundreds of leaders in the AI industry saying the technology could lead to human extinction.
Plus, why wasn't she found earlier? I am totally transparent with you. I do not know.
Anger in Iowa as families say their loved ones are still missing in a collapsed apartment building. Their call for answers as officials were getting ready to start demolition.
And here are your winning lottery numbers on your screen right now.
This What's Trending report, sponsored by Rug & Home.
Robert De Niro and Al Pacino have been in plenty of movies together. Soon, they might be meeting at the playground.
Brian Schrader is here now with What's Trending today. Brian.
News broke just a few hours ago that Pacino is expecting a baby with his girlfriend. Now, this is her on the left in this photo with the 82-year-old Pacino there in the center. This comes on the heels of De Niro's announcement earlier this month that he just had another child at the age of 79.
Hooah!
Okay, Pacino, we see you one-upping De Niro there. Two thoughts. This is gross, and it's selfish, because when that kid is in high school, Pacino will be 100 years old, and then for much of this kid's life, his father won't be there. I mean, this should not be a trend, but apparently it seems to be.
It's evoked strong feelings in the newsroom here, Brian.
Look,
Indeed,
I'm just saying what a lot of people are thinking.
I think a lot of people are thinking that, very likely. A new neighborhood near Las Vegas is going viral for the theme of its street names. They're all Pokemon characters. Soon people will be meeting at the corner of Charmander and Jigglypuff, which is a desirable address for sure. The developer says that it was her kid's idea, so it must be good.
Yeah, her kid's idea. And there's a nearby neighborhood. They're going to use all the names from the characters in Yellowstone. So they're on to something here, Brian.
Quite a theme.
Thanks, Brian. NASCAR driver Chase Elliott will sit out the next race after a crash at the Coca-Cola 600. NASCAR suspended Elliott for one race after ruling saying he deliberately sent fellow racer Denny Hamlin into the wall. So he'll miss the NASCAR race this weekend just outside St. Louis.
And NASCAR capped off its busy month of racing in North Carolina with a special visit to the state legislative building. A big 75 sign stood alongside it in downtown, celebrating NASCAR's 75th anniversary. In addition to the Coca-Cola 600 in Charlotte on Monday, the state hosted the NASCAR All-Star Race at North Wilkesboro earlier this month.
And coming up, we'll have the latest details on a nearly 9-hour standoff in Butner as police have one man in custody. Still ahead.
And it's a great start with some drizzle in places. In Chapel Hill, it's a little damp this morning. I'll show you when the drizzle moves out and when we can see a little bit of sunshine coming up.
We also have a live look for you right now at the General Assembly, where a vote on mobile sports betting will happen in just a few hours. When you might be able to place a bet on your phone if that bill makes it to law.